Hello, and welcome to Learning in the Museum, a history of museums and museum education. In this video, we will be examining the origins of museums and their transition from private collections to places of public learning. Although not often thought of as such, museums represent a critical element of America's educational infrastructure, particularly as it relates to art education. In the words of noted scholar and leading authority on museum education, George Hine, to assume museums aren't educational institutions is to shirk their basic responsibility. A museum is only a warehouse, an archive, or a storage place for objects if it doesn't welcome visitors and in some form attempt to educate them. To fully appreciate the extensive tradition of the museum, we should first look back to its origins in antiquity. Dating back to approximately 530 BCE and located in what is modern-day Iraq, the first instance of what we today might consider a museum is attributed to Princess Enegaldi, priestess and daughter to Nabonidus, the last Neo-Babylonian king. When archaeologists uncovered Nabonidus's palace at Ur, they discovered dozens of neatly arranged artifacts whose ages differed by centuries. In addition, they unearthed clay cylinders, much like the one seen here, inscribed with 3 different languages, which archaeologists determined to be labels for each artifact. Even the word museum comes to us from antiquity. The Museum at Alexandria, or the Institution of the Muses, was a place of music and poetry and the site of a philosophical school and library. The 17th century saw the emergence of cabinets of curiosity. These encyclopedic collections showcased a wide variety of objects, including items from natural history, geography, archaeology, holy relics, and works of art. Also known in Germany as Wunderkammer, perhaps the most notable collector in history was Danish physician and natural philosopher Ole Worm, whose collection is pictured here. Worm used his extraordinary collection for the purpose of learning, but was typical of other curiosity cabinets of his day in that it straddled the line between fact and fiction. A contemporary of Worm, Elias Ashmole, was the celebrated English antiquary, politician, astrologer, student of alchemy, and himself an avid collector of curiosities. Ashmole would eventually donate his sizable collection to the University of Oxford. The university would be the first corporate body to receive a private collection, erect a building to house it, and make it publicly available. This institution would eventually become the Ashmolean Museum. American Charles Willson Peale was a Renaissance man in the true sense of the word. He was foremost a painter, but also a soldier, scientist, inventor, politician, and naturalist. Funded by President Thomas Jefferson, Peale led the first U.S. scientific expedition in 1801. Peale's collection of specimens would eventually be displayed in his own museum, pictured here in a painting by Peale himself. This collection would later be purchased by showman P.T. Barnum and made part of his American Museum, which offered a combination of strange and educational attractions from 1841 to 1865. Some of our nation's most important museums were established by a man who never even visited the United States. English chemist James Smithson bequeathed his estate to the foundation of an institution that, in his words, would be for the increase and diffusion of knowledge. This institution, of course, would become the Smithsonian, which is today the home to a world-class art collection. Most American art museums at the turn of the 20th century were established with educational ideals in mind. From the broad notion that museums should teach people about art, there emerged at least 4 different philosophies: teaching art historical facts, developing appreciation of the best art, educating citizens about the role of art in daily life, and bringing the arts and humanities together through interdisciplinary education. Many of these concepts still exist today within the Art Museum over 100 years later. In 1904, editor and founder of School Arts magazine, Henry Turner Bailey, presented suggestions to the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, pictured here in its original location, on how to better help visitors to interpret their collection. Bailey first suggested leaflets be placed in each gallery to describe the objects within and highlight their individual significance. Secondly, he suggested a visual representation of art history be built. This timeline would include reproductions of important artworks, as well as copies of original works elsewhere in the museum. Bailey's third suggestion was for the museum to provide lecture courses that would interpret the collections. The 20th century saw major steps forward in the realm of museum education as the field began to become legitimized. That change was due, at least in part, to the efforts of Victor D'Amico. As Director of Education for the Museum of Modern Art in New York for 30 years, D'Amico taught scores of workshops, classes, and programs based on the idea that art and art education should be responsive to and impact contemporary living. D'Amico viewed the museum as a laboratory and asserted that the role of the art museum in education was to, quote, help education by exploring new teaching practices and techniques. The museum is the last remaining source of such experimentation, and through this service alone can offer the schools a valuable aid. The museums of today are more integrated into our lives than ever before. What were once institutions that were available to only a select few now strive to be a part of their surrounding communities. Many museums offer tours of their collections with well-trained docents, or lectures and classes from educators. Many institutions serve as a destination for school trips, or in some cases will send museum educators into classrooms to work directly with students. With increased technology came the possibility for museums to digitize their collections, place them online, and make them available to an entirely new audience. In every instance, the goal has remained the same. As museum educators, it is our responsibility to make use of these extraordinary objects to engage with visitors and educate them. And that brings us to the end of our video. Thank you for watching.